Sit!
Welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast, where we discuss Dynasty strategy, rankings, and all things NFL. So get ready to geek out on fantasy football with your host, Rich Dotson.
And welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm Rich Dotson. He's Matt O'Hara.
Hey.
He's Garrett Price.
Hey, how's it going?
And we are the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast,
Nice.
where we talk Dynasty Fantasy Football 52 weeks a year.
I'm not going to lie. That was a little bit too sing-songy for me.
Well, I used to watch Sesame Street when I was a kid, so
For me, it wasn't sing-songy enough.
Okay.
Aha.
I want more singing.
There you go.
This should be a musical.
Hater.
Well, just phase me out then. It's fine.
I feel like my seat's lower than it normally
I feel like you're farther away than normal. That's why I just scooted closer.
Come smell my neck.
No, thank you. Never mind. I'm back. I'm
Take a
moving
deep
back away.
inhale. Do I smell like Mexican food?
Yes, you do. Actually.
Why your neck?
I got so fat before this show. It was so great, dude. I went to the Mexican place I go to. It's like the salsa is like the best salsa I've ever had. I go there. I literally just eat chips. Not like I'm like one of those wheels on the back of those old Huckleberry Finn boats. You know what I mean?
Constant motion.
Yeah, I just got like chips all
Huckleberry Finn boats.
nonstop, dude.
Have you seen the meme where it was like, I just realized that if you put 4 chips together, it's a tortilla, which means I just ate 87 tortillas before my meal.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
that's me. That's me. I always walk out there so bloated because I'm like, I just eat. Thank God the food comes so fast.
Sure.
You
They don't
order
give you
it,
enough
and
time.
I don't even know they write it down. I think they just hear it in the kitchen. They're like, oh, Richard got the same. Even though I've been going there for 9 years, I got the same thing every single time. But if somebody asks me a question, I'm like, in my head, I'm aggravated because I'm like, why you interfere in my cheese, tortilla, and sauce? You know the food comes fast. I've got a lot of time for this. And you guys for the refill on the salsa real quick and just do Steamboat Rich.
You're messing with my ratio here. I'm supposed to have 187 tortillas by the time this thing starts.
Yeah, so I'm feeling pretty fat right now. You know,
All fat and sassy.
PHT. Yeah, dude, I love that. I'm not just go get all
Eat some breads and desserts.
Get all fat and sassy.
Exactly.
I love that lady. So today we're doing a nerd show. We're doing stats that matter. If you read the title before you hit play, and what this is all about, well, man, I have no idea. So we're gonna kind of talk it out with you as you listen. Garrett put this show together. We do these like twice a year. We've had some really good ones with the quarterbacks, the receivers. Odds of being a running back won more than once. So Garrett put something together here. I have no idea what any of this that I'm looking at means. I see people on here like Fat Eddie Lacy, he ate a lot of salsa too.
He had some tortillas.
Good old DeMarco Murray out of Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Out of Oklahoma.
Yep.
Matt was a big DeMarco Murray fan.
I was.
Pre-Dynasty Nerds podcast.
Correct.
Took him at 2-1.
I did.
I know. I remember that too.
That paid off. He had a slow start, but then all of a sudden, had that monster, 18 touchdown year,
Yeah,
whatever
he was
that was.
winning me championships.
Look who's right under him. Somebody you were really big on for the Dynasty Nerds podcast, Devontae Freeman.
Yep.
You were also really high on him.
I was.
He panned out as well.
Yep.
I was high on Stephen Ridley.
He had a season.
He did have a
He
season.
had 2 seasons.
2 seasons.
For the Patriots. Yeah. All right. So, Garrett, why don't you, instead of talking to me and talking to Matt, talk to our listeners.
Yeah.
Matt and I will be a fly on the wall here and kind of see what you're talking about. And then we'll chime in with our intellectual prowess.
You could do that.
I can't say it better than that. Just go ahead. You take it away, G.
All right. So what we have here is I wanted to take a look at some statistics. And we talk sometimes about stats that are predictive and stats that aren't. Sometimes
500 receiving yards as a rookie.
that's a very good one.
Or 497.
Or 497
I've amended
or
it.
better.
I've amended it.
Have 9-inch hands at least as a quarterback. Sorry, Jalen Milroe.
Ooh, bum, 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 bum. All that being said, so I wanted to look
Did he
at
measure him with smaller hands than that?
Yeah.
I didn't check the
Under 9
measurements.
inches, 8 inches and something. Whatever. Kenny Pickett Jr. He's got the hands of Kenny Pickett and accuracy of Anthony Richardson.
Can't miss.
What can go wrong? And all they're talking about here in Cleveland is because Tommy Reese just got promoted, the offensive coordinator. It's like, the Browns are going to be locked in now for sure on Jalen Milroe. And I'm like, I'm saying this now. If they draft Jalen Milroe to be our next quarterback, as hard as it may be, I'm transferring fanhood.
No, you're not.
I know I'm not. But
There's no way.
I'll complain about, like Matt complained about the pervert. So. Sorry,
I can see you canceling your season tickets, but I don't think I could ever see you not being a fan.
Yeah, no, that's for sure going to happen. Daddy needs some money in his pockets. I just call myself Daddy. What's wrong with me?
Yep.
What's wrong with me?
All right, Father. Well, let's get into the show.
What's dirty here? Hey, Father.
What was in that Mexican food is what I want to know.
All right, so I wanted to look at stats that and really figure out, are these stats predictive? Are these something that we can look at and say with a high degree of certainty, seeing this typically equates to that? And the first one that I started out with, and we're going to talk about first, is rushing touchdowns, and specifically 10-plus rushing touchdown seasons. When we see a guy have a big rushing touchdown season, which tends a lot, most years at the running back position, you're going to get 5, maybe 6 guys. There were as many as like 9 running backs, as few as 2 in a season. Yeah. And I basically went back to 2010. So we've got 15 years of data in here. And I didn't want to go any older than that, because that's when running backs started to really morph and change a little bit more into what we have today, and got away from the Emmitt Smiths where they would just get 400 carries a season. And, I wanted to get into something that was more modern, but a large enough size so that way we can say how accurate this would be. So what I wanted to do is, like I said, I wanted to see how predictive is it if a player has 10 rushing touchdowns in the season, will we see that again in the following year? And then to extrapolate on that even more, will we see that again in their career period? So how predictive is it for the following season? And then how predictive is it period moving on? So like I said, went all the way back to 2010, all the way up to 2023. Didn't do 2024 because obviously I needed to see the following season, which would have been this year.
Right.
So basically all the way up to modern day. Now, going through this list of names, you mentioned some of the names in here. It's fun to kind of go back and look at some of the names, guys that had 10 touchdown seasons. But what's also really interesting is to see some players that are not in here. Like Lev Bell was one that I was surprised. Never had a 10 rushing touchdown season, like in all of his years. And he was fantastic for fantasy football.
But you had Big Ben. I mean, a lot, and that's what, like, when I look at this from, like, going into this, before I look at any of these stats, like, it's always, to me, it's like, okay, what does that mean to me? Well, it all depends on, the scheme you play on. Who's your quarterback? How often can you get in the red zone? You know what I mean? Things like those. If you have, again, Big Ben, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts as your quarterback, like, it's going to really hurt your rushing touchdowns, because when you get into that 5-yard line, there's a good chance that quarterback is going to rush the football as well. So it really does hurt the situation. So the fact that Lev Bell doesn't have that doesn't overly surprise me.
Yeah. So going through, there are a ton of names that you'll see and that had tons of 10-plus rushing touchdown seasons. We've got kind of a modern marvel in Derrick Henry right now. He's had 7 straight seasons with 10-plus rushing touchdowns, which is just an absolutely absurd number. But getting back to the stats that really matter here.
Jonathan Taylor.
I know, right?
Jamal Williams with 17. Jonathan Taylor with 18 in 2021. Derrick Henry in 2020, 17. Todd Gurley in 2018 with 17. Derrick Henry in 2019 with 16. That's a touchdown gobbler.
Gobble.
Yeah, there's a lot of big numbers on there, because a lot of them are close to 10, but there's a couple big time.
Couple really, really big seasons. So what I did was I took all of the players that had a 10 or more touchdown season purely on the ground. This is not receiving touchdowns for running backs. This is only rushing touchdowns. I compiled all of that data, put it together, and that averaged out to roughly 12.53. So we'll just say 12.5 for easier math. 12.5 touchdowns per season for all of those guys. So like we said, some of them had 17, 18. A lot of them just barely hit the mark with 10. But that averaged out to roughly 12.5 touchdowns per season. And I wanted to see what's the drop off the next year, because some guys will have more.
Yep.
Some players will have an even better season than the year before. But what should we kind of be expecting if somebody has a really, really high rushing total on the touchdowns? What should we expect the year before or the following year? And I removed, because I know that there's going to be people that say, well, that's not fair to to fully judge it on that because, well, what if somebody gets hurt the next year? Or what if a player is really old and we wouldn't expect them to do it again? Like, there are some things that us common folk would just assume automatically, like Raheem Mostert. Like, he had an amazing season last year. Nobody expected him to put together another huge rushing touchdown season, especially at his advanced age.
Or they switch teams. Like, you have Jamal Williams in 2022, scores 17 rushing touchdowns, leaves, goes to the Saints.
Goes to New Orleans.
Nobody's like, oh, yeah.
And then he has one. But then right after him, who enters the equation? David Montgomery with double-digit touchdowns. So, again, that kind of shows you, like, it's not just the player. It's a scheme, system,
100%
that you're on that is
a big
probably the most important factor outside of, like, you know, the guys
some
that
of
are
the freaks.
Yeah,
So what I'm
freaks,
hearing
Derrick
is
Henry.
Roshan Johnson's going to score 17 touchdowns next year. That's what I'm
More or
hearing there
less.
with the Bears.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
All right. Just
Until they draft Quinshon Judkins or Marion Hampton.
Yeah, absolutely. So I removed all the players that did not have 150 rushing attempts the following season, or were their next season was going to put them at age 30 or older, just to kind of help remove some of the more obvious ones that probably wouldn't have made the jump to another 10 touchdowns.
injury or aging themselves out of the
So you took that out of the equation.
Took
so
it completely out of the equation.
So they did it 1 year, and then in the following year they were 30, or they got hurt. That doesn't affect the score.
Exactly.
Okay.
They would have had to have at least had 150 rushing attempts the following season.
I'm following the breadcrumbs a little bit.
Yeah,
here still.
you're following along. So, like I said,
Hansel and Gretel house.
12.5 average touchdowns for that group. The following year, the very, very next year, on average, that dropped to 8.83 touchdowns. So
Not a bad season.
Not a bad season. Still a good number, but you can expect roughly in the average drop off there. So that's about a 30% drop off from what they did the previous season.
About four touchdowns.
About 4 touchdowns.
About 30%.
Yep, about 30%.
So I think that's something good to kind of keep in mind.
Yep.
As if you see a player with a high touchdown total, doesn't mean they can't repeat. Like I said, sometimes guys do even better. But put that in your mind that, hey, there's a good shot that this player is going to not repeat this. And in fact, we're going to see them dip below 10 touchdowns, probably lose about 30% of their volume. The repeat percentage. So a guy got a 10 touchdown season and then followed up the very next year with another 10 touchdown season. We're at about 37.8%. So 38% roughly of guys did it 1 year, and then the very, very next season they played, they did it again. So to me, what this says on the surface is I don't want to trust rushing touchdowns a ton.
Yeah, I mean, it's you're more than likely you're going to have a 30% drop in production, and if you do exceed, there's only a 30% chance that you're going to actually exceed. So it's a much greater chance that you're going to go down than go up.
What's crazy on the top here that I'm seeing too is, and I'm real curious to see how this all translates to 2025, is David Montgomery and Jamir Gibbs both did that in 23 and in 24. That's insane. Both had more than 10 or more rushing touchdowns in 23 and 24. 2 running backs on the same team.
I think those guys are ripe. You know, I mean, that's a situation where I feel like the offensive coordinator is leaving. Yes, those 2 guys are still there. Yes, they're going to try to keep that as kind of keep it going in the same manner that it was going, but it's still going to be a different play caller. And it's hard to project both those guys, in my opinion, of being guys that are going to be 10+ touchdown guys. Again, just because the situation has changed, I think, more drastically than anyone cares to admit there in Detroit anyway.
So we actually had, now I said average year was like 6 or so, 7 maybe. We actually had this year more players of 10 rushing touchdowns than we've had in this entire stretch.
Because running backs are back, baby.
Running backs are back. So that's what's going to make this really interesting here. James Cook was 16. Jamir Gibbs was 16. Derrick Henry was 16. Josh Jacobs, Jalen Hurts doesn't count. Bijan, Kyron, Saquon, David Montgomery, Joe Mixon, Jonathan Taylor, Chuba Hubbard.
I don't even think the Browns scored 10 touchdowns this year. So
I think you're probably right. And why? Explain why the running backs are back, right?
We saw it from week 1. The passing volume dropped drastically. rushing volume went up quite a bit. And it was a concerted effort on defense's parts with how Josh Allen played, Patrick Mahomes was playing, like all of these guys where the teams were constantly getting beat deep, vertically, constantly. So what did they do? Most teams implemented 2 high safeties as opposed to just the one, or bring a guy up into the box, things like that. We saw the highest amount of 2 high safety over the past few years than we had seen in the previous decade. So that's part of why all of this. Also, it was a really good free agent crop of running backs that we don't normally get, and it was a really bad rookie class. So all of these veterans had the opportunity to go pick ideal spots for them and get huge season. I mean, you look at most of these, I shouldn't say most of them, but there was a lot of guys here. Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, Saquon Barkley, Joe Mixon, like all of those guys were on different teams. Aaron Jones, he didn't get to the 10 touchdowns, but he was another one that left and had a good season as well. So all that being said, I think that all plays a lot into, why we saw this big jump. But keep that in mind. Traditionally, these guys are we're going to see a lot of them have a drop off, and we're only going to see on a good year 40% of these players repeat with double-digit touchdowns. So when you're seeing a lot of these players, especially the non-consistent guys, it's not Derrick Henry, it's not Jonathan Taylor, it's some of the other ones. Keep that in the back of your mind. We could be seeing some regression from these players.
And I guess to pile on to that, I mean, obviously, every single one of these running backs is going to be a year older than they were at the beginning of last year, but this is a really good class, as opposed to last year's that was a bad class and a good free agent crop. This is kind of the reverse, right?
Yes.
So that could also lead to a perfect storm of guys kind of getting phased out and new blood coming in. So
and more committees.
Yeah, no doubt.
When there's that much talent.
Yep.
You tend to, hey, we can balance this out a little bit more. So we could see a lot less of, hey, we're going to give you 250, 300 carries. We're going to give you 180, 190. We're going to give this guy another 150 to help keep you fresh on the field. That's what Detroit's doing.
Right.
That's what Detroit's doing, and it's working. So
at a high level. And we kind of said that like a couple months ago, if not a month ago, saying the running back market or the running back landscape in Dynasty is going to change drastically starting in 2025. Mm-hmm. It's going to be, and I think the worst year we're going to see it is going to be 2025 because you're going to get all these rookies that come in. You said it's probably going to be a lot of timeshare running backs going in on here, and they're going to have to kind of like weed through that to see who becomes that next starting 3-down potential running back. And because there's a lot of running back talent here, that guy could come in here and be the guy mixed in with some of these guys that are about to enter that 27, 28-year-old range. We're like, okay, time to like move on here.
Yeah.
One, you're doing a free agent contract, a new contract. Why pay you when we have Cam Scatterbo? Things on those lines. And even repeat names on here like Josh Jacobs, or a better example, somebody who just looked really good and lost James Cook. That touchdown run he had was absolutely fantastic. So dynamic, so electric. And it's like, okay, he's only 25, he'll be 26. It's like, okay, well, like the clock is officially starting to count down here on your dynasty value, right? Because like most of those guys don't translate after that age, unless you're like an outlier. And when you see out here, there's a couple guys that stick out on this list that you have that are outliers, right? Like, Zeke Elliott was an outlier. We knew that. Derrick Henry, a clear outlier. Josh Jacobs, he's a clear outlier on here. Somebody consistently gets it done year in and year out and kind of find that guy. We can expect Saquon over the next couple of years to be that outlier running back.
Sure.
But like after that, we can expect Bijan to be that outlier running back.
Bijan and Gibbs are both guys that are, young guys that we have high hopes for.
And that's what we said. And after that, can Breece Hall recover from that knee injury? Was last year just really the fluke coming back from the injury? Or did it affect him? Like, did he have that Todd Gurley effect where okay, this is not going to go downhill? Kyron Williams, well, does he get a second contract? Like he's a mystery. And then outside that makes the value Matt mentioned when he took James Cook so high. It's like, dude, outside of once you let James Cook wall, dynasty wise, there's not many running backs you feel really comfortable. And definitely now because the fact that the landscape is going to change so much. For me, this is the time, which is going to be hard to do at this point too. Your time was during the playoffs. So it really was if you weren't a true contender, just unload all your running backs because at this point, everybody's like a grenade. You have no idea when it's going to go off, and it's just going to kill everything around you, or at least maim it. So it's like you have this one value today that could be completely obliterated tomorrow. And you mentioned if some of these guys enter timeshares, like where do you go from being running back? There's like, if you're a running back 13, does that push you down to running back 19, 20, 22, 25, 28? Are you outside the running back 1 numbers? Are you going to be waiting for injuries? Like, and people are going to get banged up and people are going to look really good. And then what does that do? Does it happen? Like, do people fall off the map like a Travis Etienne? You know, like it's such a mystery. And what do you do with guys like Travis Etienne? You know, like Tank Bigsby there, and nobody's even safe to the point where like, okay, like Tyrone Tracy, far from safe, right? Like looked really good this year. You feel really comfortable with them, but the Giants could easily draft a running back in the 3rd round with their high pick and get really good value. And a guy like we mentioned, Quinshon Judkins, Trayvon Henderson, and you're like, oh man, I feel way less happy about Tyrone Tracy. You could be in a situation where like Bucky Irvin looks so good, right? Like so good. And you're like, this is great. And all of a sudden they take some in the 2nd round out of nowhere. I mean, look, the Lions blew our doors off, you know? Like,
it was DeAndre Swift, and then all of a sudden it was Jamir Gibbs and David Montgomery, overnight.
Just like that. So I'm real excited about it. It's going to be really, we always say like the NFL draft really changes your dynasty rank, your rookie rankings pre-draft. Like we do all this work, we study the tape, and we do that, and we give a pre-rank analysis. You know, that's based on college tape only. This is what we like their skill set. And then we let the NFL draft kind of flip that over, right? I mean, it kind of like for me, like I took Zach Charbonnet and you're like, dude, like I'm putting him here like the back of the 2nd. And people are like, why are you putting him down so far? That's nuts. You wouldn't take him with 2-1. I'm like, no, absolutely not. Like I like Kenneth Walker too much. Or goes back to what's his face? It was like he was on the Chargers.
Ryan Matthews?
No, more recent.
Guy from Texas A&M. Is that what you're talking
about? Yeah, the guy that was playing with Achan, Spiller.
Yeah, Isaiah Spiller.
There you go.
A lot of dynasty really liked Isaiah Spiller. He was in like the top 3 of the running backs. And he goes to Chargers and it was like, oh, this is no good. He was behind Eckler at the time, Yeah. So like the NFL draft really will dictate. I mean, we could have somebody like, again, Quinshon Judkins, for example. Like, I really like his tape. He's running back 3 for me right now, you know. And all of a sudden he goes into a situation and he goes with Kyron Williams, for example. Or he goes, I'm trying to think of somewhere to be like not great.
Annoying.
What if he went to Indy? Like crazy.
Yeah, there you go. That's even a better example.
Jonathan Taylor.
Indy, he's behind, you're like, oh, dude,
That's not fun.
I'm not happy about this. Like, I want to move on. You know,
right.
Like, he immediately gets bumped down. And then, like, Cam Scatterbo goes to the Browns, right?
Yeah.
Like, in the 3rd round, the first pick in the 3rd round. You're like, okay, well, I like this player's tape better. I think he's a better running back, but this player's in a much better situation. And unfortunately, with this position, you don't have the luxury of saying, oh, well, in like 2 years from now when he becomes a starter, like that's for a running back, you're almost at the end of the window. I want to have you on my roster at that point anyways, which is crazy. And it's why we say that position is such a fluid position. But when you can find guys like this on your list that are the mainstays, and how you've been saying, like, I've kind of flipped my strategy in startups where I'm like, totally want to grab Bijan. I want to grab Gibbs. I want to grab Achan.
Yep.
You want to grab one of those top guys because they are a little bit more of that diamond in the rough. They're really hard to come by to get that position to plant that flag and put them in your lineup for a long time and produce at a high level, which is what we've done. Again, stats, if you want to go back and look at a last year's episode of how often a running back has to be the chance to be a running back one, repeat. It's that it was equal to the receivers.
It was,
almost.
yes, it was. So it's funny that you say that because I did a similar thing with all of this data that I had on our last tab there. So this was players that had seasons of 10 plus touchdowns. So I listed all the guys that did it from 2020 or 2010 through 2023, all the guys that did it.
So this goes back to 2010, right?
All the way back to 2010.
I want everybody to pause here for a minute. I want you to guess what running back had the most 10 plus rushing touchdown seasons since 2010.
So quick caveat with it. I counted if a player had one season in the 2010 plus range where they got 10 touchdowns, I counted all of their seasons. So for what it's worth.
Yeah. If they made it on the list in 2010
or later, then
you counted all of their seasons. All of their previous seasons.
Which is totally fair.
Yep.
Yeah. So ever.
All right, so think about it.
Think about it.
I bet
Rich said to pause, so we can just talk.
Oh yeah, you pause it, not us.
Yeah, we don't have to pause
Ferguson.
I bet if they tried to guess the top three, I feel like they would do okay with the first two. I do not think they would get the third one.
Third one is hard.
I definitely don't think they will get the
Third one's hard.
third one. I bet most people would guess. I think there'd be some pretty good close guesses to the 5 and 6 guy.
Yeah,
Possibly 7, possibly 8.
but yeah, number three is a tough one.
All right, who's number 1, Garrett?
So, number 1, Adrian Peterson. He had 8 seasons during this stretch with 10+ rushing touchdowns. That's a lot.
Oh, you're so good.
That's a lot. Derrick Henry, though, right behind him with 7 seasons. And those are 7 in a row. Really, even that year where he only played like 10 games, he still crossed.
So he has a chance to tie Adrian Peterson in 2025.
Correct.
Ooh,
Correct.
giggity.
That's rarefied air.
And number 3, who had a really short window of being a starter.
Yeah, and he took advantage of it. It was 5 straight really good seasons for Mr. Michael Turner.
Michael the Burner Turner.
He's the only running back that I really like. There's multiple ones. Like Ben Tate falls in that category of like the backup running back that like once he gets a shot, he's gonna be really good. Like there's a couple guys that I thought would be that guy. Michael Turner's the only guy that ever panned out to be that guy.
Especially going to a different team. Like we've seen a few like the Ecklers and Pollards where it's the same team and then they rise up as being a backup and becoming the starter. But like to be a backup, go to another team and then become the guy, like it's hard to do.
Yeah, and I had Michael Turner in our old Dynasty league, and I had LT, LaDainian Tomlinson, so I had Michael Turner too. And I was
So you had both for a little bit?
Yeah, I remember I traded a first round pick for Michael Turner.
Okay.
The year before
He traded it to me. I traded him. Michael Turner.
Yeah, the year before
I got Greg Olson with that first pick.
Okay,
So it worked out.
Look at you, Mr. Memory Banks. Yeah, so like I gave him a first round pick the year before he became a free agent. The backup, he's like, oh, you can back up LaDainian Tomlinson. He'll be a free agent next year, probably be good. And you know, okay, yeah. In your head, you're always going, yeah. When this guy comes, I probably made the same move for Ben Tate and didn't pan out.
Right.
But yeah, and then I'm getting Michael Turner. So yeah, real surprising name.
It was one of those free agent pickups for me that turned out. You know what I mean? You pick up a free agent, you get a first round draft.
It's a win-win for everybody.
Total win-win. Yep.
You got Greg Olson.
I did.
So all that being said,
Great announcer.
I did I did the same type of study. Like if because we established before the odds of them doing it the next season of getting a 10+ touchdown season and then another one, looking at about 38%. But what's the odds that they're just going to do it, period? It didn't shoot up as much as you would expect. So it's just about a 50-50 shot. If somebody gets a 10 touchdown season, got about a 50-50 shot that they're going to do it again. So only 50.94%, so 51% that they are going to do it again. But where it really starts to change here is
just one other time, right?
just one more time. Yeah. The guys that did it 3 or more times, only 18.8%. So if you have a guy,
only 10 running backs, only 10 running backs since 2010. And remember, these stats go before 2010 too. You just had to be from 2010 to have one of those.
Right.
Only 10 running backs in almost the last 20 years have had 3 seasons or more of 10 or more rushing touchdowns.
Isn't that crazy?
10. Those 10 running backs are Adrian Peterson, Derrick Henry, Michael Turner, Zeke Elliott, Marshawn Lynch, Todd Gurley, Jonathan Taylor, Josh Jacobs.
You missed Arian Foster,
and Saquon Barkley.
That's a pretty elite group of players.
Yeah, it really is. And Turner's at the top there with 5. Then Zeke and Marshawn and Todd Gurley had 4. Then Foster, Taylor, and Jacobs and Saquon had 3. And that's it. And honestly, there's only 27 running backs, period, that had 2 or more.
Right.
27.
And listen, there's some guys on that list that could still do it, right? Kamara,
Gibbs,
Eckler,
McCaffrey.
Yeah, there's definitely guys that they could still have them for him.
Yep.
Bijan's only at 1 right now. He didn't get it in his rookie season, but he got 14 this year.
David Montgomery's at 2. And so those guys have a
Kyron
chance.
Williams, Joe Mixon, James Conner.
But you see even a lot of really good running backs like LaShawn McCoy only did it twice. D'Angelo Williams only did it twice. Chris Johnson only did it twice. Austin Eckler only did it twice. And then even a lot of good names that only did it once. DeMarco Murray only did it once. Jamal Charles only did it once. Like, it's not easy to, especially in today's day
and
and
Jamal
age.
Charles was all world.
He was
fantasy.
awesome.
Like amazing.
Ray Rice only did it.
Yeah,
did
it's
it
really
once.
Jamal Charles was all world, like all pro, like Hall of Fame fantasy football running back, one season of 10 or more rushing touchdowns. And some of these names were like, come and go kind of guys,
Sure.
Like very small. Payne Hillis,
Latavius Murray.
yeah,
Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis.
Stephen Ridley, Jeremy Hill.
Mike Tolbert is on this list.
Mike Tolbert had a season. He
Gus
had
Edwards
a season.
is on this list.
He did it last year. Gus
Peyton
Edwards did it
Hillis.
last year.
Yeah, that it just Antonio Gibson's on this list. Alfred Morris, those couple good years there for Washington. So, and even that since 2010 or before. So you go back almost like 20 years, because some of these guys exceed that. So you go back closer to 2005. Only 53 running backs have done it.
It's tough to, and especially in today's game.
Yeah.
Getting 10 rushing touchdowns is a lot. That's why this year we're going to have so many that add to this list, which is going to add a real interesting kind of kink in all of this, and we'll have to see how it all plays out.
Sounds kinky.
Get a little kinky.
Yeah.
We're getting a little kinky. So,
And I'll say on this list already, like a name that pops out who's already done it twice, like Jamir Gibbs. Like really like he's the next Alvin Kamara, kind of running back.
and Kamara's only done it twice.
Yeah.
Yep.
So there's a chance like that. And the point is like to have a guy of the way he plays the game, to have those big runs and those rushing touchdowns, like what a dynamic piece to your offense. Like to the point of like, man, like I think like Jamir Gibbs should be my running back 2 overall in Dynasty to that point. Like it really, like every time I do these shows, like sometimes like it affects my rankings, you know, when you see these numbers clearly in front of you, like it just tells me like, wow, Jamir Gibbs is really worth like
special.
Even a super flex tight end premium draft, like borderline first round pick, like falls in that. Be like, okay, I can get I can get the quarterback, right? I missed on this quarterback. I can get Justin Herbert. I can get Jordan Love. Like you're not getting Jamir Gibbs. Like again, these are like the diamonds in the roughs, right? So like Bijan and Gibbs fit that category right now. We'll see what Achane does with him because he's a big play running back too. So he's not even on this list yet though. So
No, he's not.
For me, that it really does like makes me consider like, okay, is Jamir Gibbs a dynasty running back 2 overall?
He is for me right now, and I have him ranked I think at like 16 overall. So I like right after that turn, and honestly, even close to the turn, it's tough because you can still get a top, especially right now before the draft. Like if you do a startup right now, I want Bijan or Gibbs really, really bad. I'll settle for Achane or maybe Brees. But like then after that, honestly, I don't want to touch running back for like 7 rounds because
I'd rather
so many things could like blow up in your face.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be totally okay like if I pass running back early and settle with like a James Cook, a Bucky Irvin, Saquon Barkley.
Sure. There's a couple other guys I'd feel okay with, but I really want those young guys that I'm going to get a ton of time from that are super safe.
And that's where we talk about like, okay, Brock Bowers is the one of one, right? Like when you get to the quarterbacks, like you and I were talking on the Nerd Show, like, okay, I have Josh Allen and Jaden Daniels. Like after that, like I'm okay with like a big, large sum of quarterbacks. So, like those are 2 that I really want. At running back, it's Bijan and it's Jamir Gibbs are the ones that you feel really good about. Like you feel good about having Achane, but you don't have the same feeling about Gibbs, right? Like you feel really good about it.
Yeah, it's not the same.
And receiver, I mean, there's like 10 of those dudes I feel really good about. You know what I mean? Like,
and that's what affords you the opportunity to kind of wait on those guys, that those wide receivers, and why I think drafting the running backs now is really the smart move, because you're only going to get them if you take them early, and that's the only way you're going to get them is right at that turn, kind of right at the end of round 1. Beginning of round 2, like you were saying earlier.
Yeah, so the move, in a startup, you could argue the move is outside of outside of Brock Bowers in the first is like grabbing Gibbs, grabbing Bijan in Superflex, get your quarterback in round 2, and then in round 3 you get Drake London.
Yep.
And you feel really good about that. Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Yep.
Drake London, Lad
Rashee
McConkey,
Rice.
somewhat.
Like there's a lot of
Rashee
exciting
Rice
names.
can go later, and then when it comes back around, and then you look at, okay, I got my running back, I got my quarterback, I got my receiver, and now you're really playing the draft like, okay, how does my team shape up? Let me see the players that are available. Let it come to me. Do I want to grab my second quarterback here? How many quarterbacks are left? Like you're playing that numbers game of quantity, and that's what you're looking at here. Really, you're using these numbers to kind of sift through and find out. Okay, you go to the river, you put your pan in the water, and now you're sifting, and you're hoping to find a nugget of gold. And, the truth is, there's not a lot of those nugs out there, right?
Soaking it all in, dude.
Yeah, soak it in.
People don't have the view we have below the table.
Oh, my SpongeBob SquarePants Christmas pajama pants. I wore my Browns things like 5 days. My wife's like, how many days in a row are you going to wear that? I'm like, they're sweatpants. Like, what do you mean? I literally got out of the shower and then put these on. It's like, I'm not a baby. I don't have a poop in my pants problem, baby. Come on. I'm not gassy. But like,
I'm a little gassy.
So you're trying. I did have Mexican. So you're trying to find those gold nuggets, right? And that's why we say the term, dynasty gold, right? Dynasty gold. Like, there's not a lot out there. And I kind of said it on the show last week too. Like, once you get past these startups, like in the 5th, 6th round, like definitely past the 6th, like it gets real ugly. Like to the point, like I don't want any of these guys. You know what I mean? I don't want any of these guys.
Not as much fun.
So to grab those outliers, again, you can say Bowers, but you feel just as good as having Trey McBride. Like not as good, but you feel pretty damn good.
But then it drops off real quick. So they do kind of mimic running back in that sense where it's like there's two guys. If you get one of those two, they're young, they're studs. You feel good about them. And then after that, you're like, I don't know.
Throw a dart at the balloons and see what pops up.
What it also tells me too, Garrett, like looking at how few of running backs have these like touchdowns, it tells me a couple things too. Like touchdowns is completely irrelevant.
Yeah, like I'm not going to put a lot of stock into rushing touchdowns.
No stock into it. And again, it just goes right back to my point again.
You don't want to put no stock into it because I think there are certain circumstances where you can count on them, right? I mean, that Detroit offense has been.
But now it's different.
But now it is different, right? We have to find out where it moved. Does it stay in Detroit and that was a
Dan
Campbell thing? Or was that a Ben Johnson thing? Or will it be both?
It very well could.
It very well could be. So, I mean, it's hard to predict where it's going to go or if it's going to stay on that particular incident. But Derrick Henry, I think we can feel pretty good about him getting 10-plus touchdowns. Yeah, so I do think there are certain circumstances where you could feel good about it. And I think those are kind of a couple of the outliers where you can be like, year after year, I feel good about a running back, a power running back in that Lions offense getting 10-plus. I feel pretty good about Derrick Henry in that Baltimore offense getting 10-plus. Other than that, it is a complete fluke.
Well, who would ever thought Derrick Henry was not going to be a good running back?
I mean, honestly.
That's a Hall of Famer. He's a Hall of Famer.
Let's move on to the second part of this.
Wait, there's a second part?
There's a second part.
Act 2?
Act 2.
Where are we going?
All right. So I was like,
teach me,
all
Socrates.
Right. So,
Socrates.
We're
what did you call him?
Socrates? Danielson over here?
Socrates, man, you missed it. Socrates. Oh my God.
I'm so stupid.
It's like the epitome again.
Oh, dang it. And I fell for it too.
My cheeks hurt.
Oh, it burns. All right. So I was like, well, this isn't super sticky. Let's see if there's something else that is more predictive.
Yeah, let's stick with it. Are we still on running backs?
We're still on running backs, baby. Our receptions.
My favorite attribute when it comes to running backs.
It is.
Is if you can't catch footballs, you can't catch my heart.
Can't.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Rich Dotson.
Rich
Approved.
Put that on one of those shitty heart candies.
That's
there
right.
You go. Mm-hmm.
Can't catch footballs. You can't catch me.
Really small.
Very, very small. I think you can get those personalized nowadays, by the way.
I bet you could.
I think you can.
Someone should get a Rich Dotson
I got
Valentine.
personalized underwear.
We should put out Rich Dotson Valentine cards on our Twitter. Just all the things that you say that would make great Valentine Day cards.
What?
That's the only one I can think of for right now.
Well, it depends how PG we want to make it rated or not.
An undercommitment today could be an overcommitment. Like an overcommitment today could be an undercommitment tomorrow.
There you go.
Make me your long-term investment. Hey, today we're just dating. Tomorrow we can be married.
I thought it was overpay to underpay.
Know how many divorce tweets I got about Dalton Kincaid when he dropped that football?
I'm sure you got a lot.
Oh yeah, I just respond to everyone. I'm already writing a letter saying it's not me, it's you.
There's got to be a conjugal visit Valentine of some sort. I don't know.
Yeah, there was something there
that
for
went
sure.
way off the rails last week.
Oh, I forgot about that. Conjugal?
There's definitely a conjugal
let's
visit.
I'm start thinking about it again. Like, how does that work? You cleans the sheets again?
All right, so
bam.
I wanted to see if
that's the Valentine.
Yeah.
I'll clean your sheets.
When we conjugate, I'll clean the sheets.
Oh my gosh. All right. I'm going to try to get us back on track. All right, so I wanted to see
conjugal sheet cleaners.
I heart conjugal visits. You're not in jail. Was that stopping you?
I would for you.
Like I go to jail? Take my pants off with you? Come on.
All right, so
All right, let's get to the
our receptions. I wanted to see our receptions a little more predictive. Are they a little bit better at trying to figure out, will this happen year after year? Wanted to pick a number similar to a high bar, like of 10 touchdowns.
Like pole vaulting.
Yeah, like pole vaulting. So,
that guy hit it with his dong. That was so funny. Go on.
yeah, but he got famous from it, so, you know.
I wish I could get famous that way.
Smooth
sailing.
So I went with 50 plus reception seasons. So maybe happens.
Wait, hold on. A guy hit the bar off with his dong on the way over
In the
the
Olympics. He lost because of that. He doesn't win the gold or whatever. I mean, yeah.
What year? Did that just recently happen? Oh my god!
Last summer.
That's
You
horrible.
didn't see that?
No, do not watch the Olympics.
But there were a
No,
lot
I
of
don't watch the
ladies
Olympics either, but I saw
very
it all.
interested.
Yeah. And it was like, those outfits are pretty tight, right? He literally hit the bar because he was a big guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Long dong silver. Let's move on. Sorry.
Long Don Silvers.
Yeah, Google the picture. Put that on Valentine's Day card. I could pole vault without the vault.
That's
Or the pole.
fantastic. Long Dong Silvers. All right. So running backs that had 50 or more receptions in a season kind of went through and did the exact same thing. How many did they get the following season? So the average of all the players that got over 50 receptions in a season from 2010 all the way through 2023, that averaged out to be about a little over 62 receptions per season that those guys had.
That's a lot.
The following season, it only dropped to 51.7. So that's only about a 16.8% drop off. So much smaller drop off compared to what we had last time, almost a 30%. This only drops down 16%. So right
like
away,
the women watching that guy pole vault, this is a lot more of a sticky situation.
this is a stickier situation.
Got it.
This is a stickier
Sticks better.
stat. Repeat percentage. If you do it 1 year to the next, with rushing touchdowns, we were at about 37, 38%.
38, yeah.
Here, we're at 52.5%. So more likely than not that they will do it once again in the very next year, not in the future.
Ever, not ever.
Just the very next season, odds are they're going to do it again. So
A lot of repeat offenders on here.
A lot of repeat
Jock
offenders.
Bell, Wayne State.
Whoa.
And then I went to the 50 plus reception seasons, guys that had at least one of those from 2010 or beyond. Their stats were included in this. So you have some really exciting names at the top. Some of the best pass catchers that we've had: LaDainian Tomlinson, 9 seasons; Alvin Kamara, 7 seasons; Darren Sproles, 6 seasons; Matt Forte, 6; LaShawn McCoy, 5; Ray Rice, 5; Christian McCaffrey, Austin Eckler both had 5. So a lot of very big fantasy football names are on this list at the top. If the odds of you repeating the very following season, we said a little over 50%, just having a second season period didn't jump up as much as I thought, because most of these guys just did it right away. There weren't big gaps in when they did it. So this one only jumped to 59%, so just under 60%. If they do it once, they're going to do it again
At some point.
But even better, third plus season of this, where we saw almost 30% of these guys had a third or more season of this. So overall, still not, I wouldn't write this down as like the most predictive stat ever. But if you're going to be looking at something at running backs, I think the numbers bear out very clearly. Receptions are going to be more predictive year over year than rushing touchdowns will be.
Rashad White, 3 seasons already.
3 straight
He's in the
seasons.
top 21. Some names blast from the past. I mentioned Jock Bell. What about Dexter McCluster with 2 seasons?
Uncle Lenny with 3.
The best tight end I've ever seen. Wow. Some good names. I mean, yeah, so like Tariq Cohen. Matt was a big Tariq Cohen guy. Blew his knee out. That's it. Theo Riddick, 4 seasons.
Yep.
Theo Riddick, number 11 overall. Well, tied for 9th overall.
Duke.
Theo Riddick had just as many as Lev Bell, Reggie Bush, James White and Zeke Elliott.
Isn't that wild? Duke Johnson with 3. Remember, Duke Johnson had that year where he was actually a running back 1. He was running back 12 on the year.
It's
He had like
Hurricanes
90
all-time leading
receptions or
rushers
something
then.
crazy, didn't he?
He had a bunch of receptions
Yeah.
and a lot of
Insane.
yards off those receptions. Really helped him. We saw a Tariq Cohen year where he was a running back when he was either 12 or 11. So there's a lot of these guys. James
Charles
White
Sims.
that got in there. Tampa Bay.
Yep.
Okay, I can remember who that was.
Yeah. So
Jalen Richard.
Yeah.
Richard, not Richard Richard.
Richard. And once again, look at the names here. Bijan Robinson already has 2 of these seasons. Jamir Gibbs already has 2 of these seasons.
And you know what's funny? You look at this list and then you look at the 10 plus. There's not a lot of crossover.
Not as much as you would think.
But guys like you just mentioned, Bijan
They're on both lists.
and Jamir are on both lists.
Joe Mixon's on both lists.
Yeah.
If you get on both lists, you're doing something right. And so, especially if you can identify those guys that, hey, they're going to have opportunity on the ground and legitimate opportunity through the air, you overpay if you have to.
Brees
guys
Hall
are
on the
huge.
list for receiving already.
Yep,
2
Brees
seasons.
Hall did make it. He didn't get on the ground, but he did get it through the air. So you feel pretty good about that. He's got 2 of those seasons as well.
Yeah, pretty interesting. So what we learned here is, I mean, again, the pass catcher running backs, are you going to give the longest longevity?
What
The longest longevity.
The longest longevity.
I think that's a great point.
The
And-
lengthiest, longest longevity.
And you talk about the things that, you know, you look at this and then you start looking at your rankings and all that kind of stuff. When I see these kind of stats and we start digging into this kind of stuff, I always try to think like, is there a key or a tip off or a stat from these college guys coming into the NFL that can be predictive and be a stat? And I know it can't because the offenses are so much different and everyone's coming from a different offense that it's really, really hard to get anything that we can nail down and say, this is something that, 50% or 60% of the time, if they've done this in college, it produces X in the NFL.
Like a Jonathan Taylor who didn't do it all in college and then leads all rookies in receptions.
Right, exactly. So I wish somebody could. I'm not saying we can or whatever. It'd be great if somebody could find some sort of stat that was sticky.
I'll start digging.
Yeah.
I'll start digging.
That
Predictive.
really could be predictive.
And that's hard because
for NFL success.
that could be such system oriented.
It is.
I mean, again, like
There's-
Jonathan Taylor's a good example. They didn't really throw the football to the running back a ton in Wisconsin. And then he goes to
Well, there's so many
Indianapolis.
variables. You know what I mean? Was the offensive line crap? Was the how was the play calling? Or what kind of scheme?
But
were
I'm
they
sure
running?
there's something where if they did X as far as production goes and the draft capital was 3rd round or better and, that kind of stuff. Like if you start to factor in some of the draft capital aspects of it,
Sure.
I bet that can kind of help weed out some of the weird variables.
I'd smoke it.
Bingo.
If they were top 2 at the depth chart, something silly. It would have to be something silly.
Yeah. But I'll spend some time. We've got a couple more of these shows that we'll do this year.
Summertime.
And so it's a good time, during the summer to kind of look into some of those things. But overall, big takeaway on the surface. But please dig into these numbers. I'll post them, a link on the sheet so you guys can go in, see these as well for yourself, pick them apart, all that kind of stuff. But the biggest takeaway is rushing touchdowns, not super predictive, but keep an eye on them because there are certain situations where you can feel better about them than others. Receiving receptions, much more predictive. Still not foolproof, but much more predictive than rushing touchdowns. If you get guys that can cross both lists, you've got something special.
Yeah, DMX. All right. Well, back tomorrow. We're talking, rookie draft picks. And
their value.
Their value compared to like, okay, I have 1/6. Who can I get for that?
Yeah.
We're going to like talk it out. Like,
Who's an equivalent value of, the 110? Who's
which kind of sucks for me because like I still like it's going to change drastically until I watch the tape, all the tape.
It will.
But right now, like I'll give you my January.
And look, we know just from historical data what this is typically worth. We think there's a lot of good players in this class, but the numbers don't vary too much over time. Like, the top 4, really high hit rates.
Yep.
From 5 to 12, it's almost a wash.
Yep.
So
Remember Shane Vereen?
I do.
I do, yeah.
I do remember
TJ Yeldon. I remember.
TJ Yeldon. I forgot about him.
Was TJ Yeldon the guy, after watching his tape, I timed him to a poor man, Adrian Peterson?
I think it was.
I think it was, too.
I think it was. He was super
Super poor.
Super poor.
Let me
destitute Adrian Peterson.
Let me talk about why Clyde Edwards-Helaire should be 1-1. Wow, swing and a miss. TJ Jacksonville Jaguars, right?
Yep, Jackson.
TJ Javid Best. I thought he could have been so.
He had to retire early. Yep. That one, like I almost didn't want to put him in here because like it's really not his fault he didn't get another season, but got it. The stats.
Ryan Matthews thought for sure. Ryan Matthews. Did you go to Fresno State?
Sounds right.
Think so. That feels right to me.
Okay, yeah.
Marcel Reese.
J.D. McKissick. Look at these names.
Fun names. See, people say that guys can just sit around and like just name old players and have a great time. 100% accurate.
It really is.
100% accurate.
Tajay Spears on the list.
Hey-o.
It really is. You can just sit there and name old names.
We'll be like, that guy.
I remember that turd. Shine him up. A lot of Patriots on here.
Yeah, well, they had a lot. I mean, that was
their thing.
That was their jam, man.
That was their jam.
Pierre Thomas
on there. Remember Mark Ingram? Like all the top guys are pretty outside of like Theo Riddick. They're all pretty well established names here.
Yep.
Definitely. Matt Forte. How good was Matt Forte?
Had a 102 reception season.
Tulane?
Yep.
Tulane
running back.
Yep.
Yeah. It's always
look at that running back powerhouse.
All right, we'll be back tomorrow talking more Dynasty Fantasy Football because this is the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast. Make sure if you're not a member of the Nerd Herd, we've been posting it all 22 film room right now.
So good.
I've gotten so many tweets lately. Like we put out a big special for the film room, and so many people tweeted like, "Where has this been all my life?" I was telling you guys we were like doing something. I was like, dude, it still blows my mind how people don't like. Even people in the industry that don't know we have the Dynasty Nerds film room, like, and how like important that is, and people are blown away with how well it's done. We gave him a shout out to on the Nerd Show, Matt Cooper and his team.
They've done
for how well they do.
Job.
But like we have every draftable player that you could possibly draft. We have about 5 games on average of every single player.
It's hilarious. Like even like super small schools where guys are like, oh, I can't find any tape on this guy. Like I want Harold Fannin, but getting Bowling Green. Yeah, we got 3 games up already. If you want it, we've got it. And even there was a couple that, Matt and I were talking the other day of guys that like real small school, like it's like Marcel Yarns or Marcus Yarns, something like that. He's from Delaware. And he got a Senior Bowl invite. And so we're like, all right, we got to get him. But I don't know where we're going to find it. We look in here. Oh, we've already got a couple games. We'll cut them up. Like, we've got Delaware games that we're cutting up, guys. It's the best place for all 22.
Yeah, and remember, these games are cut up so you can watch the entire game within 5 minutes. So we cut up the tape where if you're watching film on Ashton Genty, the whole tape that you're going to watch is going to be every snap that he's on the field. Once that play is dead, it's on to the next play. There's no fluff. There's no commentary. It's all film, all 22. Usually we'll go sideline and then sky view. So they'll show a play and they'll go multiple different ways to go around that. So obviously the quarterbacks are going to be a little bit longer of tape.
Yeah, those are closer to 10 minutes, but still 5 to 10 minutes on all these guys.
And it's important because like the way we do it is not every time they touch the ball, it's every snap they're in. Because you want to see how's their pass protection. What do they do? Are they Adonai Mitchell when they're not getting the football? Are they trying to buy hot dogs from the vendor at the 10-yard line? You know what I mean? Like all that, but that stuff
should have been a tip off, man.
Damn. Yeah, I mean that's one of the things where like I was down on him because it's like his effort and like that effort can show up on that all 22 that you won't be able to see on nationally televised games, right? Like broadcast tape. So the film room right now for the price of a cup of coffee. You can get in there. You don't have to sign up for the Nerd for the year. But remember, you just don't get the film room, too. Once we're all set, you're going to hear us talk about the Nerd Score a ton. If you don't know what the Nerd Score is, what everybody does, I think I'm going to start doing the Nerd Score this year.
Are you going to do it?
Well, Jared asked me to. So we'll see how it works out for me. I feel like I'm just going to bring it down. I don't want to mess with the scores.
We can do what Matt did last year, just like a test season.
We'll see.
Get a feel for it.
I'm going to do a second test season.
Are you really? You're not going to do a real one?
We'll see. So
I don't think so. I don't think I'm going to have my crap together quick enough for you guys.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. They're so far ahead of it. Yeah. So, but the Nerd Score has outproduced NFL Draft Capital. So, and then we're going to the Nerd Score Plus, which is going to something's going to do new this year, which is going to equate to Draft Capital and landing spot.
Draft Capital, landing spot, college production, and strength of schedule in college. So that way, if you're playing higher competition, you get a little bit more of a bump than if you're playing MAC schools.
So it sounds an awful lot like what I want you to research for a sticky stat.
It might just be this extra score here.
Yep. So for the price of a cup of coffee a month, you could join the Nerd Herd, and every membership that comes in, again, this goes right back into the investment in your Dynasty experience, right? Like, again, we invest a lot of money into Dynasty Nerds Film Room. Like, we pay, there's a lot of film. Somebody's got to cut that up, watch it out, put it out there. We make sure that's taken care of. So you get not only the film room, not only do you get the Nerd Score, you get the Dynasty GM app as well. In the app, just go ahead and download it for free. You'll see everything. The League Analyzer is probably the best tool in Dynasty Fantasy Football, in my opinion. Yep. Gives you a bird's eye view of your league, your strengths, your weaknesses, your player shares. For the in-season, we have the Lineup Optimizer, which is outproduced, again, some other sites are giving you some projections. We've done better there. The Lineup Optimizer. You get your player shares. You get a trade calculator, mock draft. You get so much for the price of a cup of coffee a month. I mean, just think about like when you run to the store to go grab, a Pepsi or a Coke, and you're like, I might as well buy another one because it's 2 for $4. Otherwise, it's $2.99. For that price, you can put yourself in a much better position to dominate your Dynasty League. And dominate your Dynasty League isn't just in September through December. It starts now. And get in there, get in the film room, and you can listen to every analyst talk about these rookies to your ears bleed. Everyone's have a different opinion, right? Like we go left when a lot of people go right, and definitely these running backs are going to be ranked so much differently. Sometimes the deal breaker should be you putting your eyes to tape as well. And you don't have to know football like, did he rush to the 8 gap and what was that defensive scheme? Like your eyes, if you're a football fan, your eyes will tell you plenty. They will tell you plenty. Just by something's sometimes good when you see it.
Yeah, sometimes you just see it and you know. Like that guy's gonna that
might not be able to articulate
right,
it.
Right, exactly.
It could be 2 runs. Like, man, look at the way he flashed his leg there and then cut. Wow, I really like that. And then okay, that's
I flash my legs sometimes.
I'm doing it right now.
And he sure is.
Just like seeing those couple plays could be the difference between you getting, again, a Tyrone Tracy or complete. I don't know who a complete dud is at the running back that people like, but that could be the
Kendra
difference.
Miller.
Yeah, of getting Bucky Irvin, you know what I mean, or somebody else. So and that's what it comes down to. Like when you're on the clock, you have to make a decision, and your investment by joining the Herd, getting the film room, getting the tools for the price of a cup of coffee a month will give you that slight edge, because sometimes it's all you need is that slight edge and push in the right direction. Absolutely. I said I got so many emails and tweets this year thanking me at the end of the year saying I had 1-2 in Superflex, and I was not taking Jaden Daniels until I heard your podcast and when you got in your quarterback breakdowns on them, because you also get extra podcasts as well.
An extra podcast.
And it's like you're like, yeah, that's the difference, right? Like that could be the difference between you having Jaden Daniels now on your team forever, or who was the other guy clearly go like a lot of people were looking at number 3 in Superflex leagues
this past year.
Yeah,
I mean, it was either Drake May or
so we had Caleb Williams, Marvin Harrison Jr.
Marvin Harrison.
Malik
So
Neighbors.
a lot of people were taking Marvin Harrison 1-2, and I was like,
a lot of people were taking 1-1.
1-1, and I'm like, dude, you got to take Jane Daniels. Like Jane Daniels is worth 1. I said after the tape was like, man, I would take Jane Daniels 1-1 if I had two 1-1s. I'd take Caleb 1 and then Jaden 1 because he looked that good. And that could be the difference. Like you watching the tape could be the difference between you sitting here with Marvin Harrison, which I'm not on.
Yeah, I'm still in on him.
One's a late 2nd round pick, and one's arguably the 1st overall pick in a Superflex league. So get in the price, get in the Herd. Remember all this stuff. You try it for a month. 1 cup price of a cup of coffee. Try it out. Get in the film room. You can watch a lot of film in a month. A lot of film.
Definitely
if you poop a lot. If you're a big pooper. It's a lot of film time. So we'll be back tomorrow. More Dynasty Fantasy Football.
Adios.
Hey, Nerd Herd. Dynasty Nerds has an incredible new offer from Underdog Fantasy for new customers. When you sign up as a new customer, you'll get a chance at their new customer free pick. But that's not all. Underdog is also offering incredible deposit bonuses. Use the promo code NERDS when you first sign up, and Underdog will give you up to $1,000 in bonus cash with your first deposit. That's right, $1,000 to kickstart your fantasy football journey. Don't miss out on this fantastic opportunity. Head over to UnderdogFantasy.com or download the Underdog app. Sign up today with promo code NERDS and start your journey to fantasy football glory today. Must be 18, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. In New York, call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY. And in Tennessee, call 1-800-889-9789.